wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Thank you so much for tuning into another edition of the Cardinals Audit Side podcast. Final roster cutdowns have me extremely worked and stressed today. I am Donnie Druin, joined by Alex D'Agostino, Cardinals on SI.com/NFL/Cardinals, all the latest and greatest news, updates, analysis, and more. Alex, the Arizona Cardinals revealed their final 53-man roster today. I say final kind of begrudgingly because there's a flurry of roster moves that are going to come within the next week before they suit up for the New Orleans Saints. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, how are you, my man?
I am doing great on this roster reveal day. How are you doing?
I'm chilling, man. I got the day started a little bit early at 5 a.m. Tried to hop into the gym.
Ooh.
I got a nice chest and tricep day bumping, and I had hoped that the roster would have been out by 1 o'clock. The Cardinals do not like to play ball like that, but nonetheless, we are here. We're ready to yap and chew bubblegum. We're all out of bubblegum. A couple comments in the live stream already. Hashtag early tailgate gang. Shout out to you, Cardinals Sin. What is up? Howdy.
Welcome.
And then hashtag bro Donnie hours and you guy. I do think this is the podcast debut for you.
Yeah. No? First time I've been on. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was going to say, I thought I had you on previously, but I guess not. Really quick, though, let people know where they can find you because Cardinal stuff is not the only thing that you do for the network.
Yeah, I do a lot of Diamondbacks work for si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. Yes, there we go. You can find me on Twitter at AlexDagAZ. A lot of Cardinals, a lot of D-backs, just about everything.
Bro. Love that, man. A little bit of everything. Life in the desert is what it is. Covering the great teams that we have. So like we said, the Cardinals did reveal their 53-man roster and the just bumping, man. Cardinals are fashionably late organization. Not even fashionably, if we're keeping it a buck here. Bring back Fahoko and Carter. We will talk on that. Darth Vader, shout out to you, my man. How are you? Love the profile pic. Are we surprised about Bam Knight? We're going to get into it. I'm not going to say I'm not surprised. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin, if you like that, give me a hell yeah. Before we get into the final 53, there were a handful of moves made in conjunction with assembling this final 53. Alex, to start off the pup list, Walter Nolan Jr., or not Walter Nolan III, Bijan Ojulari, and Bilal Nichols all land on the pup list, which means they will miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season. They cannot practice within that time. And then whenever they are due to come back, I believe there's a 3-week practice window from whenever they're designated to return before the Cardinals have to make a decision on them. We were talking a little bit before we started recording, Alex. Kind of disappointing to see Nolan land on this list, given the initial reporting around his calf injury, given we haven't seen him in either training camp or at preseason. Do you have any thoughts on just the overall move, number 16 overall pick, not going to be out there the first 4 weeks of the year?
Yeah, it's a little disappointing. You kind of wanted to hope that this one was one that, they might hope that he could fight through and get to week 1 or maybe week 2 or maybe stash on the active roster and just be inactive on game day, that kind of thing. But not in the cards.
Nope, not in the cards. I don't know if that was a pun intended or not, but that was phenomenal. Shout out to you, Steve. How's it go, my man? And then touching on Bijan Ojulari really quick. I don't know what happened to that knee, my man. It's been over a full calendar year since BJ has hurt himself. And there's absolutely no rush to get him back because of the other names that we've seen in the room. However, you would have liked, because he had so much promise coming down the tail end of his rookie year, you would have really liked and hoped to have seen him at least return to practice. We haven't seen that quite yet with BJ. And then Bilal Nichols, hurt last year, was placed on PUP to begin. Just an unfortunate batch of injuries for the Cardinals front seven.
Yeah, Nichols isn't so much of a surprise. Neither is Ojulari, but I think that's a pretty big disappointment because honestly, he was considered, like, they valued him pretty highly. And I think this was kind of a big year for him because it was supposed to be the year that he finally got a chance to actually get something on tape. I mean, really, we haven't seen enough. And I think his clock is kind of ticking at this point.
It feels like it feels like with the other names added in the room, it doesn't help guys like Jordan Birch and Xavier Thomas has really shined this preseason, making the bottom of that room hopefully as good as the top heaviness that we see with Josh Sweat, and maybe we can get something out of Zaven Collins or Baron Browning, but we will see with that. Shillian says apparently Bijan Ojulari is nowhere near close to coming back on. I believe it. I believe it. If it sounds like he's had quite the road to recovery. I don't know if he's had any setbacks. The Cardinals, and for those who don't know, during preseason, the Cardinals do not have to be very specific with their injury reporting from the team itself. They can be kind of vague. Regular season, whenever they're required to put out injury reports ahead of time and like practice designations, stuff like that, then they have to be a little bit more on point with whatever they say. Jonathan Gannon has done a pretty good job being pretty open about guys who are hurt, but whenever it comes to these specific injuries and what they've done or haven't done, he's been pretty cards against the chest. Also, no pun intended there, Alex. So,
Nice. Nice.
I've seen BJ off to the side before. I can't say this is true. I do think he has been rehabbing. Cardinalson says, I have genuine hope to see Nolan and Nola Cardinals once again dishing out disappointment early. I know it's not their fault. I don't think, at least. I think he might travel with the team, but he's certainly not going to be dressed. He can't be dressed. He has to miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Alex D'Agostino on this wonderful Tuesday. And then the injured reserve moves. Hayden Connor and Christian Jones both were injured during training camp, so they had to go on injured reserve as opposed to PUP. Both of them are designated to return. And then JJ Russell, his season is actually over. If you remember, he had that nasty head-to-head collision in the early parts of training camp. Brought him back. I think he practiced for a little bit, and then I think he suffered another injury. So unfortunate to see there. Hashtag real Donnie Hours teasing potential roster rouge loophole. And you're the wrong podcast for that, brother. I love Seattle, bro. I am that kind of guy. But as such, we do have a 53 roster, like we said, subject to change as names come and go. And I'll tell you exactly why a little bit later when we get into the specialist portion of the program. Alex, 2 quarterbacks here, Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett, Clayton Tune out of here. Tune time is officially over in the desert. Nobody's surprised, right?
It's not a surprise after what you just witnessed, but I also would be a little bit surprised if he didn't show back up on the practice squad, because I'm not entirely sure how many NFL teams are looking at him and going, yeah, that's an upgrade over our QB3.
100%. And I think when you look down to what a QB3 is supposed to be, that emergency quarterback guy, at absolute worst, you just want a guy in that position who knows your offense and who can run it. And like you and I can say whatever you want about Clayton Tune's ability to rest through reads, to march the Cardinals up and down the field. He at least knows Drew Petzing's system, right? He knows the offense. And honestly, my man, like if we're getting to the point where Clayton Tune is getting snaps on an NFL field, shit went really sideways really fast.
Yeah, things
really, really fast.
Season's already over if we're talking about QB3 on the field.
Yep. This takes me back to the Colts' old quarterbacks coach. He was asked why nobody behind Peyton Manning got any practice snaps during the week of practice. And he said, because if Peyton goes down, we are fucked and we do not practice fucked. So I think that's exactly the case there. Whatever you evaluate Clayton Tune. I know I asked you this earlier. Do you see the Cardinals keeping Tune on the practice squad or potentially stooping around for a quarterback 3 from another team's cut? I think they're content with Tune. I really, really do. I don't think they love the player that he is, but I think at very, very worst, like we just talked about, he knows the offense. And as a practice squad guy, as an emergency quarterback guy, that's pretty much all you can ask for. Do they want to take the time to get another guy outside of the building to learn everything about the system? You can find other talented guys, absolutely, but they probably want to divvy their time to other places. Alex, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's more likely he just shows back up on the practice squad. I think they're pretty happy with what they have in Brissett, and like you said, if it's getting down to QB3 hours, then I'm not so sure. Snoop Huntley is going to be the answer anyway.
That's fair. That is absolutely fair. Actually, that's Pro Bowl quarterback Snoop Huntley.
Yeah. What a year that was. What a year that was. Hopefully, they're not talking about Kyler like that in the future.
Nah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. I doubt it, but we've seen crazier stuff happen in the National Football League. So this has got to be shifting over to the running back conversation, my man. I was bamboozled whenever I got this notification. Not over Michael Carter. I saw Michael Carter not making the cut. James Conner, Trey Benson, DeMar DeMarcado, no surprises there, but Bam Knight. Knight cracking the list, man. Yeah, over DJ Dallas.
That's a big one. I mean, this is perhaps the least reactionary coaching staff in the NFL. And Bam Knight breaking what 67-yard that
Yes, sir.
67
Big
yard
play Bam
touchdown.
Knight. That's what they call
Yeah,
him, baby.
like it almost feels like they kept him because of that play. Like that's just not something you see out of this team very often anymore. It's pretty surprising. I don't know what Michael Carter has to do to get on the roster. I know you are a big Michael Carter fan,
I am.
but I'm with you. Nothing against Bam Knight, but I think comparing the two, pretty surprising that they think they can get more value out of him than Carter as their fourth back. And it's surprising that a guy that Monty Austinfort signed to a pretty hefty contract in DJ Dallas to play special teams, which they also heavily value, and they don't they're willing to part with that.
Yeah, and like you highlighted a little bit earlier, I am a big Michael Carter guy. I think whenever you're evaluating like the best pure runners of the football, he's probably up there in terms of the top of the room. What I will say, whenever it comes to the bottom of the depth chart roster guys, you got to be able to contribute other than doing what you're mainly supposed to do. Carter never struck me as a guy who can pick up pass pro on third downs. Carter doesn't strike me as a guy who can be a major special teams contributor. And that's why I'm a little bit shocked why DJ Dallas isn't on this roster right now. Because granted, he did have the two mishaps in the opening preseason week, in terms of the return game, dropping both a kickoff and a punt. He's been a pretty solid guy for them. He really, really has. And I think at absolute worst, he might have been like a short yardage, like maybe third down running back for the Cardinals to utilize if Benson or DeMercado for whatever reason weren't able to be available. But Bam Knight impressed him, man.
Yeah.
Bam Knight impressed him. It might have been the hunger. It might have been, and like for good example, like Knight does play special teams. Like, they're not just keeping Bam around to have a jersey on game day to maybe get 1 or 2 carries per game. Like he's going to play special teams. That's going to be how he earns one of the 48 roster spots on an actual NFL game day, but surprising for sure. Absolutely surprising. I don't have any issues with any of the other 3 guys on the list. I know people don't like DeMercado, but he just does too much for them.
He's stepping up. He's stepping up. He always comes through when they need a play. I think he gets scapegoated for poor situational play calling when he himself has always executed at a pretty high level from what I've seen.
I'm just saying, man, back-to-back years, we've seen him take a 50-plus yard run against teams from the Midwest right before halftime. All I'm saying, he produces for sure. We'll get to Keaton Crawford here in a bit, but I'm also glad they didn't release him. I wonder if that touchdown run against Vegas turned the tide towards the Knights' favor. I'm not going to say it didn't.
Had to have. I think it had to have. Otherwise, what are we doing?
These ASU kids kill me, man.
Oh my God. I am not Richie. You can't appeal to me like that.
Yeah. Shout out to Richie. That was kind of surprising, but it doesn't shock me. I wonder if that fumble against KC was the nail in the coffin. I think for a veteran with a lot of competition in the room, mistakes like that can't happen. And the fact that it didn't happen only once, but twice, not exactly.
Do you think that they go with Dortch then full time as their kickoff returner, or do you think they put DeMercado in there?
Ooh, I would say Dortch or maybe even Weaver, because Weaver was the fifth guy on the roster. Yeah, not at all. He did get a little bit of special teams run down the stretch. Speaking of Weaver, Cardinals opted to keep 5 wide receivers. No surprises for the top 4: Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, Greg Dortch, and Xavier Weaver. And the surprise here, Alex, was Semi Fehoko, who every single person I talked to, media, fan-wise, whatever you want to call it, had Semi Fehoko in their final 53, including me. So you can imagine my surprise whenever homeboy hops on TikTok. It is like, yeah, they cut me. First of all, points for originality, but is Xavier Weaver that much better than Fehoko, both as a receiver and a special teams contributor?
I don't know. That's a tough one too. I think that's like Fehoko fit their kind of archetype of wide receiver a little bit better. Kind of a bigger guy, special teamer, more maybe contested catchability. I think maybe they're looking at Weaver. Maybe they're taking, everything that we've said and a lot of the media and fans have said of needing that guy that takes the top off the defense. Maybe they're looking at Weaver and saying, rather than wasting assets on Tyreek Hill, we got Tyreek Hill at home. Let's try and let's see what we can do with this guy if we give him a bigger opportunity. But then again, they like hardly ever run in 4 wide receiver sets or 5
Right.
wide receiver sets. So, what is it, a special teams thing? Is it like
Could be.
you kind of don't know at this point.
No, you don't. And like to your point, man, if there's a guy who can be that receiver in the room who can take the top off a defensive vertically, it would be Xavier Weaver. But we're entering year 2. I mean, he's made some plays here and there, but like nothing consistent, nothing that's like popped off the tape to warrant like actual NFL game reps. And I'm not saying Fahoko would have gotten those opportunities, but it seemed like as an overall football player, and like I hate to keep beating this drum, but like you got to be able to contribute on special teams, and maybe not keeping Dallas and Carter, maybe that opened the door to say, hey, you know what, we need an extra man in the return game. It makes sense to keep Xavier Weaver here while also hoping he develops offensively as well. That makes sense to me.
Yeah,
And kind of talking myself through it now, like I get it for sure. But like after the preseason that Semi Fehoko had, I think it would be very fair at minimum to call it a surprising move.
definitely.
So, I mean, the chat seems to agree. Alex Fehoko shocked me.
He seemed like a
Rafa,
good guy too. Like he seemed like a Jonathan Gannon, Monty Austin-Fort guy, which I think kind of contributes to that as well.
yeah, I would absolutely agree. And like I asked him about Fehoko after the preseason finale, and his smile lit up like he got his favorite Christmas gift, man. So it is what it is. 4 surprises for me are Simi not making it, Papo, Keitrell, and Bamba making it. I think you can make an argument maybe all 4 of those were surprises in their own respects. Fehoko did show some grit over the course of preseason. Steve says, yeah, I thought they liked bigger receivers because they can block and everything is about the run. You know, and for an offense that loves 12 and 13 personnel where they don't use the receivers deep week in and week out, you would maybe think that's like the archetype, but is what it is. And flip on the other side of the coin, Drew Petzing hates wide receivers. If he was a tight end, he would have made it. I can't disagree. Can't disagree, my man. Rafa says there are better inside linebackers getting cut than Papo, Bam, whatever, and I just don't like Keitrell. We'll talk about Keitrell here in a minute whenever we flip to the defensive side of the ball. Watch Simi go to a rival and ends up beating us on our last second play. Not the first time it's happened. I know a team in Santa Clara that has like me and Alex playing wide receiver for them right now that could definitely use a Semi Fehoko.
Steve Keim, legendary trade, chosen Robbie, whatever his name is now.
Chosen Anderson, I think, is the actual name of him now. It changes every year, man. It's like kind of like
different.
Lottery,
it's always different.
Built different. Built different indeed. On the Cardinals on Inside podcast. Moving on to the tight end room. No surprises here. Trey McBride, Tip Ryman, Elijah Higgins, and Travis Vokalek. Copy and paste from last year, man. Like it's one of the best tight end rooms in the National Football League. Nothing to change about it. They got one of the best tight ends in the league in McBride. They have a pass catcher in Higgins. They have a run blocker in Ryman. And then you got Vokalek, who's a special teams guy. So it seems like they've really liked that room. Not a whole lot to analyze with that.
No, I think like each one of those, outside of McBride, who is the star, I mean, I think each one of those guys fills their specific role very well.
Completely agree. Moving on to the offensive line room. This is where it gets kind of fun. I did not expect them to keep 9 total names. But the big emergence here, Will Hernandez comes off of the PUP list and can begin practicing with the team immediately. And I think that's a good sign for a guy who in week 5 of last year tore his ACL. There was a lot of talk about if he's healthy enough to play this year, if he was going to sign with anybody. He ends up coming back to the desert, working under the assumption that he was going to be a backup until he got fully healthy. Then the Cardinals can kind of evaluate things from there. But you got your starters there: Paris, Evan Brown, y'all did for a whole Isaiah Adams, Jonah Williams, got your swing tackle and Kelvin Beachum, got your swing interior guy and John Gaines, who they really, really like. The undrafted guy, Josh Fryer, gets the nod at tackle, while Christian Jones will be out for at least the next 4 weeks. So shout out to him. Fryer, I think, had a really good training camp. And then we talked about Miho, just a great signing for both the locker room and kind of give you some security depth at guard.
Yeah, that's pretty big, him coming off PUP. I think that's the offensive line focus has been on Isaiah Adams, but I truly don't know if he's ready to be the everyday pass protecting guard for them. And I think having an insurance policy as good as Will Hernandez is so big for this team.
I would agree because I think the offensive line depth entering training camp was really like an under the radar storyline that not a lot of people talked about. And I think that became more clear after the second unit went in during like preseason action or even like training camp. But after the second unit came in and we're like, oh shit, like
Yeah, it looked bad in that
yeah,
first
if
like 2 drives with Brissett.
top heavy for sure. But if any of those starting five guys goes down, like we might be in a little bit of trouble. So to go get a guy like Hernandez, who I feel like can play both guard spots if absolutely needed. Um, they do like John Gaines, but obviously when I got like Miho, who has so much starting experience, so much like chemistry within the offensive line room, whenever he wants to come back, it's really, really hard to say no to that. Steve Holler in the chat. O-line was my biggest worry before the re-signing of Will, at least at depth. I absolutely agree. Can't wait for Petzing to underutilize Trey in the red zone. Dude, I went on the fantasy football podcast and somebody asked me if I thought Trey McBride was going to be like schemed up more in the red zone. And I'm just like, they tried to get him the ball in the red zone last year. They
Yeah,
tried very, very hard to
I
do
don't
it.
I don't think that one was on Petzing. I really
No,
don't.
no, it's just for whatever reason, kind of like my Wi-Fi right now. It's just kind of dropping like crazy, my man. So not really something to see if it'll improve for sure in 2025. You have to imagine the touchdown production will increase a little bit, but
Yeah.
never know, my man. Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, defensive line. Again, you can make an argument. No surprises here. Campbell, Tomlinson, Robinson, Justin Jones, who is now healthy again. Dante Stills, PJ Mustipher, and then LJ Collier. In the little description under that, I said somebody hoped UDFA Elijah Simmons would have landed here, though Mustipher squeezes in over him. You could probably get Simmons back on waivers and like get him back on a practice squad. Mustipher, you maybe could have made the same argument for.
Yeah, I don't think it's a guarantee you'd get Simmons back, but I do think that it's a possibility. Mustipher kind of just had a strong push at the end of the preseason that I think
Yeah.
kind of put him over the edge. I'm a little surprised to see Justin Jones back, honestly. Like I'm surprised he's healthy and I'm surprised that he wasn't released.
Yeah, especially the price tag that he comes with. And it'll be so interesting, Alex, to whenever we get guys like Walter Nolan and guys like Bilal Nichols back and healthy, who's kind of the last man standing in his room or who's maybe the first to go more so. Because I'm looking at Mustipher as one of the two guys that might have to get ixnayed. Other than that, like Jones might be a contender, even though the price tag definitely plays a part in that. Same can be said for LJ Collier too. Like it's just it's going to be some very interesting conversations the Cardinals are going to have at some point in time in 2025. But for now, I mean, it seems like they really like this defensive line room. I really like it. And then to answer a question in the chat, Walter Nolan is on PUP. He will miss the first 4 weeks of the season at minimum. So I think New Orleans, Carolina, San Francisco, and then they're back home against Seattle for that Thursday night game. Speaking of which, the rivalry uniforms are supposed to drop a little bit later this week, and I think it's pretty fitting the Haboob came in yesterday, maybe giving us a little bit of preview of that. And then this seems to be a pretty common theme, too, whenever it comes to PJ Mustipher. It says he really earned that spot. I would agree. I think it was a very close coin flip for me between Mustipher and Simmons. I'm not upset about any of it, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were high on Simmons because it was kind of that like, oh, did we find something? Did we find find something in an undrafted free agent? And I think, like you said, there's a chance he comes back on the practice squad. Maybe they get him in there, and if there's injuries, maybe he does serve as some depth. But I'm not. I don't think that the Cardinals were banking on him being a contributor as much as some of the fans maybe were.
For sure. And it's so funny because Jonathan Gannon a while back ago said, I'm not in the business of cutting good football players. But when you draft as well as you do, when you develop talent as well as you do, and you have to trim a roster from 90 to 53, you're going to find yourself in a spot to cut good football players. It's kind of the nature of the business, to kind of the catch 22 of having a general manager like Monty Ossenfort. And like for my money, like a pretty damn good scouting department too, for them to find some of the guys that they have later in the draft over the course of the last 3 years. You can put Simmons in that list, man, because Simmons had a pretty good training camp. Like I thought he had an okay preseason. Like he's not some world beater. Like I don't think people should be up in arms about him being left off the roster, but like he is a good football player. He could potentially develop into something down the road.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I've probably written that same article like 15 times by this
Yeah.
point, but it's a
And we're
good
going to
problem
keep
to
reading,
have.
Alex.
It's a good problem to have, but also, I mean, think about the 2023 team. Think it like, where do Mustafa and Simmons fall
Oh, they're
on
starting.
that 20? Yeah, right.
They're
So
starting.
if those guys are on the bubble of getting cut, like that's crazy, right? Compared to what we had to endure in 2023.
Yep, nah, a lot of strides for sure. Yeah, they're starting next to Lecky Fotu. Then I think you and I are kind of the backup
Yeah.
guys in the practice squad at that point. Really quick, some uniform predictions. Do you think they're going to go with sand-based uni?
I hope so. Welcome back, 2024 Serpientes.
Love that. Absolutely love that. I was a big fan of those, by the way. I
Yeah, me
like
too.
those Serpientes jerseys better than the new ones they have.
A little bit, I agree. I like using purple and teal, but I think the
Same.
whole uniform looked better as a whole with the old one. But
I would agree. Moving on to the outside linebackers room, Josh Sweat, Baron Browning, Zaven Collins, Jordan Birch, Xavier Thomas. No shocks at
yep,
all. Bijo Jalari, copy and paste what we said about like Nolan and Nichols whenever they eventually get healthy. If and when Bijo Jalari does get healthy, um, what do you do with them? What do you do? Because it's hard to imagine they want to get rid of any of those guys. I think Xavier Thomas might be kind of the sacrificial lamb, but like Thomas has looked good 2 preseasons in a row. And I think for what it's worth, like he didn't put up crazy numbers whenever he did play last year in 2024, but Thomas still looked pretty solid as that like 5th rotational pass rusher.
you noticed him. Like
Yeah.
I think that was like the biggest thing that you could say is that you noticed him when he was on the field last year. And like that can't be said for a lot of the guys that they've had recently. So I think if you're looking at just overall factors that would go into that, sure, obviously you're not cutting the guy that you signed to a huge contract. You're not
Mhm.
cutting the guy that you traded for, and you're not cutting the guy that you drafted in the 3rd round. So it's Thomas or Collins, and I think they have too much of a relationship with Zaven Collins to so easily say goodbye when Ojulari, who's still unproven, comes back. So that'll be a tough decision.
Yeah, and I do want to point out money plays a bigger factor into these kind of decisions than people would want to admit. I don't think after inking Collins to a contract, granted, it's not some big lucrative deal, but with the amount of money they're paying Collins, I just can't foresee them bidding farewell to him. Like whenever Bijo Ojulari comes back, if he does come back. XT did do good in the Jets game. I
Yeah,
will say that.
he sacked Aaron Rodgers, didn't he?
He did. I believe he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
which would be a career highlight for anybody.
Right?
Let alone a guy like XT. Inside linebacker, I thought they were only going to keep 3. They only kept 3 last year, but I think they were a little bit more certain about the room. Mac Wilson, Kaiser White last year. This year, Mac Wilson, Akeem Davis-Gaither, Cody Simon, and Owen Papo. Papo being another guy who, special teams guy. Cody Simon's probably going to fill that role as well, at least to start the year. I was always under the impression, and if you're one of the 5 people that listen to this podcast, or if you're one of the 50 people that read our content on cardinals.com/NFL, you would know that I was never expecting Cody Simon to be a starter to begin with. It was always going to be the veteran. It's always going to be the free agent signing and Akeem Davis-Gaither, at least to start. And then you let Cody Simon kind of work his way in from there. To me, this is only my opinion. To me, Alex, them keeping these 4 guys is just a little indicator to me that they're not completely sold on whoever they're going to roll out week 1 opposite of Mac Wilson. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I could see that too. I was definitely a little higher on Cody Simon than maybe I should have been. I was thinking maybe like he'd be right there ready to go after maybe like a couple of weeks. And you see what you get out of Akeem Davis Gaither, and then you make the change if it's not blowing you away. But yeah, I mean, keeping 4, they don't they don't really run out 3 inside linebackers very often.
No.
So I don't know. Papo's a little bit of an odd one to me. I just feel like he hasn't done really anything other than special teams, but maybe, they definitely value it. So I guess that makes sense. But
He's a fast guy who can play special teams. I feel like now we know what he is. Like I'm not expecting Owen Papo, and this is no disrespect to him whatsoever, but it feels like entering what year 3. We have a good idea what he is as an inside linebacker. He's a fast guy, but that's kind of it. It's kind of his
Yeah.
calling card, which is cool on special teams. You get to fly down the field and knock some heads around. But when you're in the box and you're being relied on to handle a lot of different responsibilities, maybe not.
The
I'm
one
trying to
thing I'll
look up.
say,
Go ahead.
the one thing I'll say about Akeem Davis Gaither is that last year Mac Wilson was Akeem Davis Gaither. They signed him, and we said,
That's fair.
"Who? Who is that?"
That's fair.
And he was really, really good. So I'm not necessarily high on ADG, but I think I'm very open to the possibility that Monty Austin Fort knows what he's doing, finding some of these guys.
To answer a question in the chat from Darth Vader, I thought Zayvon was in the last year of his contract. So there's an out after this year. He has 2 years left on his deal. Then he'll be a free agent in 2027. There's an out after this year where the Cardinals can cut him for 1.7 million in dead cap space. Which his cap hit is $6 million for the next 2 years. So if they really wanted to cut bait with him, if Baron Browning really pops off, or Jordan Birch or Xavier Thomas ends up taking the next step, Bijo Ojulari comes back and really impressive, like that would be a conversation for that. But Collins is technically under contract with the Cardinals for at least 2 more years, and they're bringing us back. There are a lot of better inside linebackers than Papo on waivers right now. That's fair. That's fair. I feel like it's a fair assessment. And you look at the guys and the different things they can do. I mean, we've seen Davon Collins have a package as an inside linebacker this training camp. That 3 safety dime look they love to roll out with Buda JT and Adrian Taylor Demerson. Rabbit will play that like nickel linebacker role sometimes too. So like there's other ways to scoot around a weakness in the inside middle linebacker if you do have it. Moving on to the corners, my man, Alex D'Agostino from Cardinals on his side, Diamondbacks on his side publisher, Garrett Williams, Max Melton, Will Johnson, Elijah Jones, Denzel Burke, and Keitrell Clark. The top of this room has been locked in, solidified for a very long time. It was the final couple spots that really intrigued me because you could have made arguments for any of Jones, Burke, or Clark to make the roster, or you could have made arguments for any of those 3 to not make the roster. It was a very mixed bag, I feel like, from training camp, from start to finish for all 3 of those guys. It's no secret I'm a huge Darren Hall guy. He's hybrid guy, safety, cornerback. He seemed to play a little bit more corner this training camp compared to last year. He's a little bit more in that safety role. But overall thoughts on the cornerback room? Did they make the right decisions with any of them, or are you surprised any of them made it? Like, what's your 2 cents?
Yeah, I'm really happy to see Denzel Burke make it, and I think Elijah Jones had some encouraging tape at the end of preseason,
Yeah.
but Keitrell Clark is a tough one. I don't get it. I don't, he was a 6th rounder. Like maybe they like what he does on special teams. He's definitely got that high energy vibe. So I get that. He's got kind of that Jonathan Gannon kind of, I guess, approach to the game. But I do feel like Darren Hall might have been a more valuable player to have over Clark.
Now we're
But
talking.
we'll see. I could be wrong.
Now we're talking. I'm glad you got that $20 Venmo request for you to say that live on the podcast. Nah, I'm a big Darren Hall guy, but like I also get why Keitrell Clark made the roster. I mean, he's a guy who's played a handful of good snaps for the Cardinals. He started very, very early in his career. Jonathan Gannon really likes Keitrell, and like now, like for what it's worth, like he's a veteran. Like he's a vet, and that's not exactly luxury in the Cardinals quarterback room where it's a lot of young guys. Max Melton, Will Johnson, Elijah Jones, Denzel Burke, all are second-year players or younger at that point. And Garrett Williams being the leader entering his 3rd year as well. Not concerned with any of the top of the cornerback room. But let's say somebody gets hurt, like, are we trusting Elijah? Are we trusting Denzel? Are we trusting Keitrell? Like that's tough. That's going to be very, very tough. And that's where you start to see the injuries to like Starling Thomas, for example, really kind of start to creep in because you were feeling really good about that room pre-Starling Thomas injury. Now, I like it, but I don't love it.
I was very big on Starling Thomas, honestly.
Yeah.
I think he was extremely underrated. But at the same time, yeah, I think that was how I looked at it ahead of time was, well, they can withstand
Mhm.
an injury. At this stage, I think if you lose any of the top 3 guys, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's saying something because of the defensive prowess that a guy like Nick Rallis carries and his ability to scheme different things and to hide different things, and they're going to have an improved front seven, which should only help the secondary. And then you have two of the best safeties in the league, in Jalen Thompson and Buda Baker playing behind you. So like you have help both in front of you and behind you. So you shouldn't be asked to do too much. But at the end of the day, like you're still going to have to cover a receiver for probably 3-4 seconds at a time. And I'll never forget Jonathan Gannon. He said something during a press conference that really stuck with me. He's like, in the NFL, like if you leave somebody open, they're going to find them. It's not college to where if you blow an assignment, you may get away with it. Like this is the National Football League. Like quarterbacks will find the open receiver. Like this is the absolute best of the best athletes in the world, and depth matters. And the Cardinals, for as much as we talk about them rotating their front seven a lot, like they may be forced to rotate their cornerback room a lot depending on how things shake out. So, moving on to the safety room, Alex. Buda Baker, Jalen Thompson, Dajan Taylor Demison, no surprises there. Joey Blunt was not a surprise to me. Like
No.
they loved
Special
him, man.
teams guy, really
They
good special
love
teamer.
Joey Blunt. They love Joey Blunt for what he does. And like to be fair, like whenever we've seen him play safety, like he hasn't been bad. Like he's not just a special team guy. Like he's been pretty solid. Keaton Crawford, though, 7th round pick this year in the draft, really, really impressed the team. I thought he played just fine during preseason and training camp activities. Also kind of gets the nod over Darren Hall too, who, like we talked about, kind of that hybrid safety cornerback role. Are you upset that Keaton made the team? I'm more than okay with it.
No, yeah, I love it. I actually that like between so it was like Keitrell Clark, Keaton Crawford, Darren Hall, right? Those were kind of those 3 bubble guys, and I think I was hoping for Crawford and Hall, and I'm very happy that Crawford made it. I think his deal is one of those guys that you see with a lot of physical skills that maybe isn't quite there with some of the technique, maybe is a little bit handsy, but he's a good physical player. I mean, you saw that interception he made. Like that was a wide receiver play. Like that wasn't
He went up and got it. Yeah.
yeah, that wasn't just like, oh, the quarterback made a bad throw. No, like he went up and high pointed the ball. Like that not a lot of defensive backs have that kind of physical skill. That's why they played defensive back and not wide receiver.
Right. No, absolutely, man. And I think for a guy who is known as like a sure tackler, like a hard hitting safety, for him to display those kind of ball skills, I think was pretty solid. Very, very solid.
And he still has versatility. They can plug him into, an extra corner spot depending on the scheme, depending on what they're doing.
Would agree. Would absolutely agree. Getting to the chat here, Darth Vader. I like Darren Hall. Same brother. Pouring one out for him tonight. Raph says Monty doesn't cut his picks. This is factually true.
Yeah.
This is true. Rallis does love Keitrell Clark, as does head coach Jonathan Gannon. Lance, what's up, brother? Thanks for checking us out. Rafa Back says, I don't think Hall is much better than Clark, and I don't think neither should be on the team, but one is a draft pick, so he gets the edge. Also a fair assessment, but for my 2 cents, I do think Hall is better than Clark. I don't think much better than Clark, but I do think he's the better of the 2 corners. Steve says cornerbacks seem like they are a year away and should be really improved after the bye week. That's what I'm saying. And like we have to remember with a guy like Will Johnson too, like he's not going to win every rep. He's going to get burned. That is what it is as a rookie corner in the National Football League. I know he has like rookie like Pat Surtain or like Sauce Gardner hype coming around him. He's a very talented kid and extremely good football player. Everybody read that Players Tribune article. He wrote like he's determined, like he has a chip on the shoulder, and I absolutely love that. But what I love for him for Sub-Zero to come out week 1 and just absolutely clamp every receiver known to man, 1,000%. 1,000%. Is that realistic? Absolutely not. Not a shot. So we just need to temper expectations for him just a little bit. Go
ahead. I'm honestly expecting him to start a little bit slow. Like not that he's going to be bad, but I expect there to be a couple of weeks where Twitter thinks that he was a bust. Because I mean, we saw what he did in the preseason. He's still kind of learning that transition to not being as handsy, kind of
Mhm.
the fact that if you breathe on a wide receiver, it's pass interference and the other team gets to automatically score and you're thrown in jail. And it's just it's going to be tough for him. And I think people weren't happy with his preseason output, and I think get ready because it might be a little bit ugly for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's okay. He's going to be okay.
Growing pains,
He's a
man.
good
Growing
player.
pains.
Try not to overreact.
Yeah, well, good luck telling everybody not to overreact when that's exactly what
Ah,
you're going to be doing. So it is what it is, my man. And then last little housekeeping thing, Aaron Brewer was cut, the Cardinals special teams long snapper. It's
wow.
just like a procedural thing. I think just to get one of those guys from like IR to the 53. I fully expect him to be back. I don't foresee them taking another route at long snapper. That unit has long been one of the best in the National Football League, and I think it's going to stay that way. I just think his absence is purely roster maneuvering and mechanics and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, it'd be surprising to not see him there on the roster.
Exactly, dude. He's got a good gig, man. Like he really, really does. Like he's damn good at his job, but like to be in the same place and be a long snapper, like you got to be pretty damn talented. So like
Yeah.
shout out to him. Chad Ryland taking over as the full-time Cardinals starting kicker, kicking Matt Prater to the curb like he did last year. And then Blake Gillikin just booming punts in preseason, man. Like
Preseason MVP, Blake Gillikin.
Dude. That's what, dude, against the Broncos when he punted what, like
70
8 or
yards.
9 times? Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Just booming the piss out of the ball, man. Absolutely love it. But there it is. There's the Cardinals' final 53-man roster. Not a ton of surprises, man. Like Bam Knight is probably the biggest one that sticks out to me. Walter Nolan on PUP. He's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the year. Same thing with BJ Ojulari. He's going to miss at least the first 4 weeks of the year as well. Other than that, kind of business as usual.
Yeah, I think the roster looks a lot like what we maybe anticipated it would after kind of that first wave of big signings and the draft.
Is what it is, my man. But we will have a lot more content and coverage at si.com/NFL/Cardinals. Alex, before we get out of here, my dude, go to plug your stuff. Where can we find you?
Yes, sir. Find me at Diamondbacks on SI, si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. On Twitter at AlexDagAZ, and of course here with Donnie.
Appreciate it, my man. Yeah, follow the work at si.com/NFL/Cardinals. Follow Alex on Twitter at AlexDagAZ. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Druin. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in, and we'll see you guys next time.